Okay, so the first step in performing our cross match is obtaining our blood sample. So we're going to use a purple top EDTA tube, and we're going to use a 3 cc syringe with a 22 gauge needle. And we also have our alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, that we're going to use to prep the area.
So we'll
go ahead and get ready.
When they're dispensing. So that's the software you use.
So you're going to want to dampen your area with isopropyl alcohol.
So to get you in here,
and that kind
you
of
open this. I'm going to make it
sterilizes
so you can open it and look
your
at
site.
what we have.
Oh, okay.
So that way you can kind of peek around a little bit. So, and then I will come down a little bit and show you how to use it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're right. Okay.
Yeah, I have the 3 and 4 ready.
All right.
Okay, so once you get your sample, you're going to want to remove your needle and put it in the sharps container. And you're going to want to immediately put your sample in your purple top EDTA tube. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to label our patient sample with her name, the date, and also we're going to write recipient. Okay, there's our labeled blood tube. Okay, the next step in performing our canine cross match is we're going to get our blood sample from our donor patient. So this is Aria. We're going to collect a sample from her jugular vein, and I'm going to use a 3 cc syringe, some isopropyl alcohol to moisten and dampen the area and to clean the area, and we will also use a purple top EDTA anticoagulant tube. So we'll go ahead and get our sample here. Good girl. Have her, I really like this side. Yeah, good girl. Okay, so we'll go ahead and moisten our area with isopropyl alcohol. When we insert our needle, we want to make sure that we insert bevel up. Good girl, Aria. Good girl. Good girl. Okay, so I'm going to hold the vein and then I'm going to have Kaylee take over and she's just going to compress the vein. And we're going to put our sample in our tube here. Okay, and you also want to make sure that your patient's tube is labeled. So I have Aria, donor, and then our date today. Okay, so today we're going to be performing our canine cross match. So now that we have our both recipient and donor samples, you want to make sure your tubes are labeled. So you want to make sure, so we have Aria is going to be our donor today, and she, I just wrote the date and then the word donor. And then we have Savannah, she is our recipient. So you want to write the date and you just want to make sure you write recipient on there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. So the first step is going to be to centrifuge these 2 samples. We're going to do that so we separate the plasma from the red blood cells. So we'll do that first. So we'll go ahead and make sure our centrifuge is balanced. So you want to put them across from each other. Okay, we're going to close our centrifuge. We're going to put our RPM up to 9,000 and we're going to spin for 5 minutes. Okay, so now that our sample is done spinning, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to separate the plasma from the red blood cells, and we're going to place the plasma in 2 no additive tubes. So we'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to very gently take these out of the centrifuge. I'm just going to stick them in our rack here. And I'll kind of show you an example of what this should look like at the end. Okay, so, here we go. Okay, so you can see that the plasma has separated and that is on the top. Should be pretty clear. There's a tiny bit of hemolysis in this sample, but for the most part, it's actually pretty clear. So we'll go ahead and take this layer off. We'll put it into a separate tube, and then we'll go from there. I'm gonna carefully take off our tops here. So I do have both our separate tubes that we're going to transfer the plasma in are both labeled with our patient. So RA recipient, Savannah, Savannah recipient, RA donor. So we're going to go ahead and transfer them to the correct tubes here. And we're going to use a transfer pipette. You want to do this as carefully as possible, and you want to try to do it with as little red blood cell contamination as possible. Okay. We now have Savannah's plasma over here. We set that aside. We're going to move over to RA's plasma. Close that one off to avoid any confusion. We're just going to do the same thing. We're going to transfer the top layer, which is the plasma, and we're going to transfer it over to our tube. Very carefully. Okay, so we have our two samples of our plasma. We're going to go ahead and set those aside for now. We'll come back to them in just a little bit. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to wash our red blood cells with saline solution. After each wash, I'm going to centrifuge it down, and we're basically going to do it until our supernatant is clear. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll take our used pipettes, we're going to discard them. A couple more pipettes here. Okay, so we're going to take our labeled saline. We're going to go ahead and just make a wash here for both these guys. We're we're just going to mix the red blood cells and the saline together. We're then going to put these in our centrifuge and we're going to spin it down after each wash. So we're going to do this wash for a total of about 3 times and basically until your supernatant is clear on the top. So we'll go ahead and do that again. Okay, so we have spun down our red blood cells mixed with the saline, and we're gonna take a look and see what our supernatant looks like, so I'll show you kind of what we have here. Okay, so as you can see, this is our saline and our red blood cells. We're gonna go ahead and spin it down a few more times and we're gonna wash it twice more at least. And then after each washing, we're gonna rewash it and then we're gonna spin it down. And basically our goal is to get this supernatant clear. So we'll go ahead and do that. And in doing this, you want to ensure that you use a brand new pipette every single time, and you never want to cross-contaminate the pipettes with the different, the recipient and donor. So that's pretty important. Take out our other sample here. This one actually looks a little clearer, so this one is a little more ideal of what we want to see, but again, the supernatant is not completely clear in this, so we're going to go ahead and wash it again and then remove the supernatant. Okay, so again, we're going to take the top layer, our saline, off, and I'm going to discard it. Make sure to use a different pipette for each patient. And the washing is important because you want to wash your red blood cells. You essentially are trying to get rid of all traces of serum that are left over. So you just want your plain red blood cells in here, which is the purpose of the washing. Okay, again, I'm going to go ahead and wash this. Our same patient sample, and you're just going to add a small amount of saline again. Okay, we'll discard that pipette. We'll put this back in the centrifuge to spin down again. And we're going to do the exact same thing with our other sample. So this is our donor, so this is Aria's sample. I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. I'm going to discard that. Discard that. Okay. Again, we'll go ahead and we'll, excuse me, we need to add our saline wash one more time. We're going to mix our wash and red blood cells, and we're going to spin both these samples down again, and we're going to repeat this until we've done this a minimum of 3 times, until our supernatant is clear. Okay, so we're going to do our third wash here. So we'll go ahead and take a look at our sample. Awesome. So they're both looking much more clear, the supernatant. I'll show you kind of, set this one aside for now, I'll show you one. So again, we'll do this one more time. But as you can see, the supernatant is much clearer than our previous time. So that's awesome. That means we're headed in the right direction. So we're gonna go ahead and do one more wash. I suspect this is probably gonna have to be our last time based on how clear the supernatant is. Okay, and again, using a clean transfer pipette, we'll transfer the saline wash on the top layer and discard it. Okay, we'll then go ahead and add our final wash here with our saline solution. We'll put our lid back on and we'll put it back in the centrifuge. We'll discard this pipette, use a brand new pipette for our next sample. So again, same thing, we're gonna get rid of our supernatant here, our saline. We're doing this, try not to disturb the red blood cells at the bottom. That's because we need those. Okay, awesome. Add our wash here. Discard that pipette. Okay, and we'll spin it one last time, so this will be our third wash. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do for this step of the whole procedure is we're going to take and remove our final wash from each sample. And as you can see, hopefully you can kind of see, these are much more clear. So that's awesome. That's kind of what we want to see. I'll show you here. There we go. Okay, so that looks awesome. That looks a lot more clear, our supernatant. And that's what we want. So we're going to go ahead and take this final layer off, and then we're going to go ahead and resuspend it and make one more 3 to 5% solution of the red blood cells with saline. And then we'll go ahead and start with our actual cross match. So I'll kind of zoom in here so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so using a clean pipette for each patient, you want to go ahead and get rid of your supernatant. Should be nice and clear. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so you want to do that so you just have your layer of cells at the bottom here. So it should look kind of something like that. You just see your red blood cells there. So I'm going to do this with both tubes using a new pipette each time. And again, just getting rid of our supernatant here should be nice and clear. Okay, so you should just have your red blood cells left behind here with each sample. Okay, so the next thing we'll do, I'll go ahead and show you kind of what we have here. So we have kind of a whole mess of tubes, but I'll go over what each one is. So I have my 2 labeled tubes for our red blood cell suspension for each patient. So I color coded them. So our 5% red blood cell solution, this will be for Savannah. This is our recipient. Let's set that aside. And this is for Aria, so this is our donor. So again, I labeled it, color-coded it so we don't have any confusion. So 5% red blood cell suspension. So the suspension should be between 3 and 5%. So we'll go. So to make our approximate 3 to 5% solution, red blood cell solution, we're going to take approximately 1 part of red blood cells to about 20 drops of saline. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and open each tube here. Zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see a little bit better. Okay. Okay, so we're going to take about a drop of red blood cells for each patient. So we will do Savannah first. So you want to take Savannah's tube. She's our recipient here. And we're going to take 1 drop of red blood cells. We're going to add it to Savannah's tube. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and discard this pipette with our recipient's red blood cells on it. We're going to add 20 drops of our saline solution to Savannah's tube. Okay, awesome. So we're going to go ahead, set hers aside. We'll set it over here. We're going to do the same thing with our donors as well. So just to avoid any confusion, I'm going to set Savannah's red blood cells aside. So we'll set these over here. Okay, so now we're going to take our donors' red blood cells, and we're going to, again, do the same thing. We're going to take a single drop of our red blood cells. These have been washed 3 times. And take the red blood cells, I'm going to set these aside, just so we don't get confusion. I'm going to discard my pipette. And again, I'm going to add 20 drops of our saline here. Okay, so now that we have our red blood cell suspension for each, we'll just kind of gently mix. And the next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and start our actual cross-match procedure. So you will see here, I'll show you my tubes that I have here. So I have 3 separate test tubes. So one is going to be the donor, one is going to be the recipient, and one's going to be the control. So this is Aria. She's our donor tube. You want to make sure it's labeled D for donor, or just donor. Savannah, she's our recipient. So I put an R on her tube. And finally our control. So I made sure to color code that so I don't get it confused with any of the other tubes. So we'll go ahead and do our cross match here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll get started here. So to prepare, we'll start off first, we'll do the major blood cross match. So we're gonna take 2 parts of plasma to 1 part of red blood cells. So we'll go ahead and take, we have our plasma sitting right here, so now we're gonna go ahead and use it. We've been kind of hanging on to this till now. So we're gonna take our recipient, so our recipient is Savannah. We're gonna take her plasma, and we're gonna do about 2 parts of plasma to 1 part of Aria's red blood cells. So let's make sure we have Savannah's tube here. So I'm going to add my 2 parts of plasma, and I'm then going to add my 1 part of red blood cells. So we made our little suspension here. We're now going to add 1 part of this to her plasma. Or excuse me, we want to make sure we use our donor's plasma, or excuse me, our donor's red blood cell suspension. So we're just going to add 1 part. Discard that. Gently mix. I'm going to set hers aside right here. We're going to do the same thing with Aria. So to do the minor, you're going to take 2 parts of the donor's plasma plus 1 part of the recipient cells, so 1 part of Savannah's red blood cells. So we're going to go ahead and take the donor's plasma, so this is Aria's plasma. We're going to take 2 parts, put it into a test tube. I'm going to go ahead and set Aria's tube aside here. And we're then going to take, our recipient's red blood cells. So remember we made Savannah's red blood cell suspension here. So we'll go ahead and we'll take 1 part of this and we'll set it to discard that. So set that tube aside. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to allow these to incubate for 15 minutes at room temperature, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, so now that we have our patient, our recipient, and our donor samples all mixed and prepared, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to centrifuge both our samples for 15 seconds on 9,000 RPM. And after that, we'll go ahead and evaluate for any signs of hemolysis or agglutination. Balance each other out. Okay, so once our sample is done spinning, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to evaluate both samples for any signs of hemolysis or obvious signs of agglutination. So this is our macroscopic kind of observation of these. Ultimately, the best way to find signs of true agglutination is to look at it underneath the microscope. So we're going to do a visual inspection first. Okay. Okay, so I'll show you my first sample here. So, as you can see, there is definitely signs of hemolysis. As you can see, this pink color. So we'll definitely call this sample a little bit of hemolysis. So we'll go ahead and set that aside. The next thing we'll do is we'll look at our next sample here. Okay, also seeing something very similar. So we're seeing signs of hemolysis here. So we'll note that in our patient's chart. So we have our patient's chart here, and we'll go ahead and make sure we mark, so both samples, hemolysis present. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take these samples and we're going to put them on a microscope slide. We're going to resuspend the samples, put it on a microscope slide, and then we're going to look underneath the microscope for true signs of agglutination. So I have my marked microscope slides here. So I have Aria, the donor, and I have Savannah, the recipient here. Okay. So we're going to resuspend. So we're essentially going to remix into a solution. So this is Savannah, this is the recipient. You know, and even as I suspend this, I think that I may be seeing signs of agglutination. It's tricky to tell from showing it to the camera, but I actually see basically little clumps as I mix it. So I suspect that this sample is going to be agglutinated once we look at it microscopically. So. Okay. Aside. So that is Savannah's, the recipient's sample. So we'll go ahead and put a microscope cover slip on there. And even when I put the microscope cover slip on here, I can actually see signs of clumping. So I suspect that we're going to see some agglutination here. Okay, so we'll take our sample using a clean pipette. We're going to again mix this. I don't see, at least viewing it, you know, without a microscope, I don't actually see obvious signs of agglutination like I did with our first sample here. It may be present, but we won't know until we actually look at it, so we'll do that next. Okay. I'm going to kind of show you what we have here so far. Okay. So you can see with Aria's, our donor sample here, I don't see any obvious clumps, but you know, we'll see that underneath the microscope. If we move over here to Savannah, you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. So you can't see those clumps. I suspect this is agglutination, but we'll go ahead and view it microscopically and we'll be able to tell that for sure. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is our patient's chart. We'll set it aside for a second. We're going to now examine both slides for any signs of agglutination microscopically. So I do suspect that one slide is agglutinated. However, we'll look underneath the microscope and take a peek here. So we're going to turn on our microscope here. I will start off with our donor's slide here. So we're going to put this on the stage and then we're going to kind of move my condenser until I get a good image here. Okay, we're then going to move up to the 10 power objective. where we should be able to see things a little bit better. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're gonna scan the slide in a systematic manner. We're just gonna go in kind of a little zigzag pattern, make sure we cover the entire thing. But if we see any signs of clumping, agglutination, then that tells us that we shouldn't use this. So we'll go ahead and just see if we can see any signs of clumping. And actually, it looks pretty good so far. Oh, no, I spoke too soon. So this is the sample that didn't visually look agglutinated, just macroscopically didn't look agglutinated, but now that I'm looking underneath the microscope, it just goes to show how important it is to view this microscopically. I do see clumping. So that tells us that this sample, these two patients would not be compatible, would not be a compatible match. So at least in this case, so this is Aria's slide. So this tells us that Savannah would not be a good match for Aria. So we'll go ahead and just note that. Grab my pen here. So I'll go ahead and record in our sample agglutination present. Okay, we'll move on and we'll check our recipient here. We'll go ahead and put this back at the lowest power. Take our previous slide off, set it aside. Okay. And this is the slide where I feel like I can actually see agglutination present, just visually. So this will be kind of interesting. Okay, yes. Definitely lots and lots of clumping. So you can see that. So we'll go ahead and move to the 10 power objective here. Wow, okay, so lots of clumping present, big time. I almost see no singular red blood cells, so I definitely think that these two animals would not be a good match. We'll see if I can kind of neat. So as you can see, there is lots of agglutination present in this sample. So ultimately, I would say that these two donor recipients are not compatible with either one, and either way. So Aria is not compatible with Savannah, and Savannah is not compatible with Aria. So in this case, definitely would not use either of these patients for blood transfusions for either of them. So we'll go ahead and I'll turn off our microscope here. Okay, we'll go ahead and record that in our patient's chart, and we'll definitely have somebody double check us, especially on the first slide. It wasn't super obvious agglutination present on the first slide that we looked at, but as I looked more, I definitely saw a little bit of it. And then the second sample, we definitely saw that too. So we'll go ahead and say agglutination. Okay, and we will then record these findings, or record our findings, and then definitely tell our doctor, and then have our doctor double check us too. Oh, another thing, so I just kind of want to briefly discuss our findings here. So when agglutination occurs, it occurs because antibodies are reacting to the donor or the recipient. So it basically it's giving us a reaction that would occur if we were to transfuse these patients together, or transfuse the donor's blood into the recipient. So if agglutination occurs, that tells us that there is an antibody response, and so it could be very catastrophic, especially in this case, would be pretty catastrophic if we try to use this match. So that's just kind of a brief understanding of how cross-matching works and can help us.